In today's show, Jackson Gatlin of Locked On Rockets joins the program, and we talk about what else. The Houston Rockets, the Blazers face them twice over the weekend. Here's everything you need to know. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers and another episode of Locked On Rockets, assuming Jackson keeps this audio in his show. Today's episode, a crossover edition with Jackson Gatlin of Locked On Rockets. These two teams play each other twice over the weekend. First, an in-season tournament game on Friday evening, and then back just a boring old Saturday night basketball game in November. Before these two teams face off, I thought what better way to we thought actually, because Jackson's into it as well, what better way to get into it than to discuss these two teams, where they're at, where they're headed, and what these games might look like. Jackson, how you doing? Welcome to the program, my dude.
Dude, I am excited to be here, Mike. I am a little scared, though, of this Blazers team that just took two games, including a cup game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So this is not like Rockets fans and the Rockets organization should not be looking at this as two layups, two gimmies against a kind of a feisty Blazers team so far this season.
They're a plucky group. They're not particularly good on offense, but they're good enough on defense to stay in games. And on nights when the shots go in, they can beat anyone. I'll just give it to you right now, Jackson. Plus 14. They're plus 1-0 and plus 14 in the in-season tournament. You better watch out. They beat the T-Wolves by 14 points in a game that included like a last 2-minute challenge in a double-digit game, because all that matters is point differential at this point. So yeah, I think the Rockets are pretty, or the Blazers are at least tough. The Rockets might just be straight up good though, right?
Rockets have, the Rockets have surpassed any and all expectations that I could have set for them to start this season. I, going in, predicted that they'd be, finish the year around like the 7th, 8th seed, top of the play-in bracket, whatever. They've legit been one of the best teams in the NBA so far this season. They have a top 3 defense right now. They're flirting with a top 10 offense, despite the fact that nobody on the roster knows how to shoot the ball. They live and breathe second and third and fourth and fifth chance opportunities. They demoralize you by crushing the offensive glass. They force turnovers. They get steals, they get out in transition, they do so much dirty work, and they have this like gritty physical style of play. It's kind of reminiscent of like the grit and grind Grizzlies a little bit, honestly. Although that team still had some, modicum of shooting on the roster. This Rockets team, despite the fact that nobody can hit from downtown, they've still been a dominant team so far this season. If the shooting comes together, it's going to get even more special than it already is.
So when I've watched them a little bit, it seems like, and you can probably speak to this, hopefully, that's why you're here. It seems like they struggle a little bit in the half court, despite having Alperen Şengün, who seems like he would solve some of that. But they want to run. Like, they're a team that is interested in running, although they might not be like the craziest fast break team. Is that where the strength is on offense? Is other than the offensive glass, is playing with some pace?
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of a key for almost every team, right? Like, if you can get out and run, get in transition, those are your easy opportunities. The Rockets definitely thrive a little bit more in transition. They've got so many athletes up and down the roster. It generates easy opportunities for guys like Jalen, guys like Jabari, Tari, and Amin, the Terror Twins coming off the bench. Like, even Şengün a little bit has been able to, secure a rebound, and get a defensive board and doesn't even, look for the outlet pass, right? He'll just start dribbling it up in transition. He's got the passing chops to make something happen there. But in the half court, it's getting better. It's been clunky at times. The half court offense hasn't been great. Largely, as I already alluded to, the 3-point shooting has just been so awful to start this year for the Rockets. They really just don't have good shooters up and down the roster, and that is a little problematic. But we're seeing Ime Udoka start to kind of diversify the offensive package a little bit in the half court. We're seeing Alperen Şengün used a little bit more on the perimeter at the elbows, and seeing some kind of like split cut actions happening off ball, which is allowing the Rockets to get to their cutting and to not necessarily have to rely so heavily on generating those outside 3-point shots. Instead, they're actually able to get some easy backdoor cuts and things kind of going towards the rim just off of the gravity that, you got like multiple guys, 2, 3, 4 sets of eyes all trying to figure out what the hell Alperen Şengün's going to do, in the half court. And then that leads to some really easy opportunities for his teammates.
Why are they so much better this year? Like, there wasn't a big splash. There wasn't this like major change, right? This is like they added a top pick that doesn't play. Like, why are they so much better?
Well, first off, and I want to also point out here, this is not going to be a Rockets dominated conversation. We're going to flip the script here in a moment so I can get some, some Blazers conversation going here. This is generally how we do it, right? We'll talk Rockets for a second, we'll talk Blazers for a segment, and then we'll get into the actual game, kind of what we expect, all that good stuff. But honestly, the summary here is just that this team, they have the continuity of last season, right? Another year all together. We're seeing Alperen Sengun take another step forward, especially on the defensive end. He has seriously improved as a defensive piece. He's currently, I don't know what it is after last night's game against the Pacers, but going into that game, he was the third best center in the NBA at defending the rim, which is kind of unbelievable. The only two guys ahead of him were Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. That is an unbelievable kind of, conversation to be in as far as his defensive uptick and how much better he is at guarding the rim this year. Ime's done some different things defensively, scheme-wise, that's kind of really helped Alperen Sengun as well. Getting Tari Eason back. A lot of people really don't understand the impact that Tari Eason truly has on a basketball court. Last year, he was limited. He only played a quarter of the season, went down to a weird leg injury with like a cyst tumor thing on his leg that had to be removed. But that's really just it, is you get a healthy Alperen Sengun who's much better on the defensive side of the ball. You get Tari Eason. You get another year under the belts of everybody, Jalen Sengun, Amen, Fred VanVleet, and Dylan Brooks, kind of knowing their roles a little bit better, understanding their teammates a little bit better this season. And yeah, the two major acquisitions that we thought were going to be kind of impactful for the Rockets, Reed Shepherd, number 3 overall pick, and Steven Adams, who they traded for at last NBA deadline. Adams has actually been woefully disappointing so far in the minutes that he has gotten this season, just doesn't look 100% yet. And Reed Shepherd's still a rookie. He's still got plenty of rookie moments. He's done what he, a little bit with the minutes that he's been given. A little gun shy offensively. He needs to be more willing to shoot the ball and hunt his shot. But overall, the team is just taking another step forward, that kind of linear progression that you want to see from a young team, just getting better at, season after season.
Yeah, I think from like a Blazers perspective, I think fans in Portland hope like, oh, that's just 2 years from now. Like that's like, we're the Rockets are just 2 years.
Hold on, Blazers fans. It'll be here soon. Like, look, we went through 3 years of hell in Houston and it was miserable. But look, that's the fruits of the labor, right? As you go through the rebuilding process, you go through 2-3 seasons of hell, you really hope that, basically you want as many bites at the apple as possible, right? And that's what the Blazers are hoping to accomplish right now, right? Is you're going to be bad for, a few seasons, you get some of those top assets, and then you watch these young guys start to develop. You watch guys like Shaedon Sharpe starting to take off a little bit, right? And you're like, okay, like this is why we were bad, to get a chance at some of these guys turning into, borderline or at least, all-star caliber type players.
Yeah, it's like impossible to make the All-Star team in the West. So what you are is
yeah,
All-Star.
Right.
You're just All-Star caliber.
It's not like Sengun was All-Star caliber last season, won't get the nod. Maybe not. It might not get the nod this season, but if you're All-Star caliber, then it still counts.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder, in sort of in light of that, and we can shift gears a little bit. This is sort of big picture stuff. Do you think the losing like poisoned the well for the Rockets? Because I think that's sort of what Blazer fans are worried about in this moment, right? If we're talking about a team that's 2 years behind, is that like the Rockets had 3 seasons in the 20s, I believe. They had 3 seasons with 3 20-win seasons in a row. Do you think it set them back with sort of losing culture? Do you buy into that stuff?
I think it depends on the coach. Right. And okay. you have a case study here, right? You can look at the Rockets, who had Steven Silas as the head coach. And, I heard him referred to, like a, mentality of like a substitute teacher, a youth pastor kind of vibe, as far as how he corralled that young Rockets team. And there was no structure. There was no accountability. There was no culture in Houston while he was the head coach. But then you can also look at a situation like the OKC Thunder with Mark Daigneault, right, who took over, and he had a couple lean years in there, but then had the uptick happen, and things looked really, really good. So I think it very much depends on the head coach. So maybe if Chauncey Billups is the type of head coach who can still kind of hold guys accountable and still maintain what he believes is a good locker room culture, then it won't necessarily poison the well, I guess. But I also kind of feel like it's just really hard to go through all that losing and then have that expectation of a coach to be able to turn it around. Your voice might start falling on deaf ears, that kind of thing. It just sucks. Like if you're an organization that's going to commit to being bad for a few seasons, whoever that head coach is not really getting a fair shake of things, and ultimately probably deserves a fair shake once things start to trend upwards. But has Billups been good enough in his role so far to deserve a fair shake once the team is ready to actually start playing some meaningful basketball again?
Right. And the words of the philosopher Felicia Snoop Pearson, deserve got nothing to do with it. It's just his time. That's all. I think Billups is unlikely to be the guy next year, just based on the way the organization works, fair or not. I think that's how it to me from the outside. I believe that's what it's going to look like. Let's talk more Blazer stuff in the second segment. You can ask me all your questions, and I would love to kind of if you're watching a plucky 6-9 basketball team early in the season, I want to know your early impressions of this team. Join us in that second segment. We'll talk all things Portland and then look ahead to these two matchups on Friday and Saturday. First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Chime. Chime helps you make progress with fee-free overdraft up to $200. It is the service that's going to make sure that your money is taken care of, and you can take control of your finances using a Chime checking account with features like no maintenance fees, with that fee-free overdraft, like I mentioned, or you can get paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Learn all about it at chime.com/lockedonnba. Here's how it works. You can join millions of Chime members who are working on their own financial progress. You can get spotted on debit card charges with cash withdrawals. There's no monthly fees or maintenance fees. There's over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Plus, eligible members get complimentary boosts to temporarily increase their money available to them with the Spot Me limits. All you got to do is set up your direct deposit in your Chime account, and after you make your qualifying direct deposit of over $200, Chime will notify you to enroll in Spot Me. And with an activated debit card, Chime will spot you up to $200 when you exceed your balance. Your next direct deposit is applied to your negative balance, and Chime never charges you fees or interest for using Spot Me. So if you need money, why not work with Chime so you can have the money when you need it? Make your fall finances a little greener by working towards your financial goals with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/NBA. That's chime.com/NBA. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank NA or Stride Bank NA. Members FDIC. Spot Me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in Spot Me and are subject to monthly limits. Terms and conditions apply. Go to chime.com for exposure details.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Look, we got these exciting NBA Cup games right around the corner. If you're in the Houston area, you want to check out Rockets Blazers, go check out the tickets on Gametime. It is the best ticket buying experience on the market right now, but they've also got you covered for concerts, theater events, you name it, they have it there on Gametime. And their Gametime Picks feature filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste so much time searching through thousands of different ticketing offers. But that's not the only feature that they have that's absolutely amazing. They've got their Gametime ticket coverage, their lowest price guarantee, views from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive to your venue. But my personal favorite is their all-in pricing feature. When you download the Gametime app, you toggle on the all-in pricing feature, and they're fully transparent from start to finish. You don't get any of those hidden fees or, those price gouging fees kind of along the way. It's awesome. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. And we're rolling along here. Oh no, what? I'm taking us back in, Mike. How dare you? This is my segment to steer the boat, run the ship, whatever. All right, we're continuing on here at our Locked On crossover. That's Mike Richmond, host of Locked On Blazers. I'm Jackson Gatlin, host of Locked On Rockets. And Mike, let's start here. I want to check in really quickly on how a couple of the Blazers' young prospects are kind of looking right now. Specifically, I want to know about what's going on with Scoot Henderson and what's going on with Donovan Clingan, because these were two prospects. Back during the Scoot draft cycle, I was begging and just praying that Scoot would fall to the Rockets at 4, and ultimately, now we're looking on the other side of this, but a year and some change in, and Amin Thompson looks incredible, and Scoot Henderson maybe not as much, right? And then Donovan Clingan was a guy that the Rockets were rumored to have some interest in this last draft cycle. There were some rumors of the Rockets maybe trading down to get Klingon, kind of diversifying, their big man cycle, right? You got Şengün, the talented offensive phenom, and then Klingon, the more traditional kind of drop big defensive presence. So talk to me about how those two guys have looked so far this season.
Oh man, Scoot he's just not very good yet. He's 20 years old and he's playing point guard in the NBA. It's not like a big stunner that maybe he's not as good as you want him to be, but he wasn't billed as someone who is going to need time. And I think that's the challenging part. We did a show right here on our networks, we did a crossover program talking about both of these franchises at the time. We were both in on Scoot. The idea being that because he had played 2 years in the G League, he was going to come in and be further along than your average 19-year-old, and he had all these physical tools, and he was, the John Wall redux of the 21st century.
As an aside, I'm so sorry. The G League Ignite was like the greatest grift of all time, right? Because some of the players coming out of the G League Ignite have not panned out, and it is now the defunct G League Ignite. It doesn't exist anymore, so it's been bad.
Hey, some of them get paid, maybe not as much as Alperen Şengün, but there are some G League Ignite guards that do get paid. And then everyone is mean to the Rockets about that one particular contract. Everyone says they did a bad job, but you could still get your money. The check's still cash. No, yeah, I agree. The Ignite was clearly like just a real mess of an incubator program. I don't think it was successful for anyone. Maybe Jalen Green, I actually think might have been the most successful story. I guess Scoot Henderson's going to make $40 million on his first contract or whatever it is. It's like,
we'll see how Kuminga ultimately pans out. Although it feels like the Warriors are kind of mishandling that situation, so I don't know.
Yeah, but Scoot's like he really struggled his rookie season, and he's definitely better than when he started last year. He really struggled out of the gates. He's definitely better. His feel is better, but he still struggles to score around the rim. The jump shot's not quite there. And the bar, I think, has been lowered such that, like, when he has a pretty good game where he has, 6 points, 8 boards, and 3 turnovers, you're like, that was a pretty nice Scoot night. And it was, because now we have really lowered the expectations. I'm not out on him as a NBA player. I still think he could be a starter in the league, but he seems a lot more like Ricky Rubio and a lot less like John Wall. And when you draft Ricky Rubio 3rd overall, it doesn't feel so good. And also, like, he needs to take strides to even get to the Rubio level. On the other hand, on the upside, Klingon can hoop. That dude can he's already Donovan Klingon at age 20 in 15 games into his career is already a pretty darn good NBA defender. He's already he leads the league in blocks per minute. If you're a per 36 guy, he leads the league in blocks per 36. He's up there among the league leaders in just like raw blocks, but despite playing really low minutes, like he had a game against the Timberwolves where he blocked 8 shots, including 5 in the 4th quarter, in one of the great defensive performances I've ever seen from a 20-year-old big man. Like, he could really play. Offense is a little bumpy. But he's not horrendous. He's just like doesn't have a post-up bag whatsoever. So he just doesn't get post-up touches, but the defense is real, and he has a very good feel as a defender. He's probably better than Steven Adams if you're into it. But yeah, like, I think for the Blazers, you've got, you're hoping that Scoot pans out and that Donovan Klingon, the graph keeps going up, because they've got some intriguing parts.
Well, so here's kind of my follow-up to that is, first off, do you need Scoot to pan out, right? Like, obviously the hope is you didn't whiff on the 3rd overall pick, but you've also got a backcourt of Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe, right? Like, those two guys look really good together. So, like, is that the backcourt of the future, or is it more like, I guess kind of the follow-up here is just, there are a bunch of kind of like, I don't necessarily, like, I don't want to call, is it weird to call, I don't think of Anthony Simons as a veteran, but he is a veteran, right? Like, he's been around long enough to be considered.
7th NBA season.
Is it, maybe it's just because, like, he's got the baby face. I don't know what it is. I just don't consider Ant like a vet for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, he's 26, his 7th NBA season. He's really struggled this year. Shooting 30% from 3. Like, he's he already has his defensive shortcomings. The thing that was going to make him a quality NBA player was being a high volume, high efficiency offensive player. He just hasn't been that. This has been a very bumpy ride. And he has been out with what they're calling an illness, but during his ramp up to the illness, according to a team source, they told me that he's relisted. He's on the injury report as questionable with now with a hand injury. And they said he hurt his hand while ramping up to work out. So he was like getting ready to play, and he had a hand injury in the ramp up. So he is questionable, although it was described to me as day-to-day. So it's a fairly good chance he plays on Friday. But he struggled. Shane Sharp's balling, though. He's had back-to-back 30-point games, and then he had a 21 against OKC in a game where he turned the ball over a lot. He's the hope. Like, he's the Blazers' best prospect in terms of being the guy who gets them to the next, whatever the next phase is.
Well, at least that's a couple good pieces, right? You've got Shaedon Sharpe, you've got now Donovan Klinger, right? That's a couple good foundational kind of building blocks you can envision. All right, starting 2 moving forward, you're starting 5 down the line. But my question is, what's kind of the plan, I guess, at this point with some of the other middling kind of veteran pieces, right? Like, obviously, Ayton's currently out, but like when Ayton comes back, does Klinger get banished back to the bench, like, or does he continue to start? Because that's kind of clearly like the Blazers are embracing a youth movement. And here's the thing that the Rockets really struggled with during those 3 years with Steven Silas is they just went like full-blown youth movement, right? They had no veterans up and down that roster, and it was abysmal. But then you get to the year where they they let go Steven Silas, they bring in their new head coach in Ime Udoka, they brought in the stabilizing, the training wheel veterans, if you will, in Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, and Jeff Green, and those were like the right veteran voices to help kind of guide the team. Right now, does it feel like any of the vets on this team are the right vets, or does it feel like these guys are all going to get churned down the line for future draft capital, whatever, other young prospects, and the Blazers are going to have to go out and find the right complementary vets for their young guys?
Yeah, I don't know that any of them are. None of them are Jeff Green. None of them are that sort of like sagely true vets. DeAndre Ayton's just like not wired that way. Anthony Simon's pretty quiet. I think Jeremy Grant has good positive vibes. He just sets like a good example, but he's not like a big vocal leader. They were talking to him this year, like, are you gonna like step up your leadership qualities? Is that something you're gonna work on? He's like, yeah. It's like, bro, you've been in the league 10 years. Like, come on, man.
Hey, man, what if it was his 10-year play? It's like he's had it circled on his calendar. He's like, yeah, year 10, I'm gonna become a leader. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm really going to step into it. It's fine. Some guys aren't that way. It's not everyone's job necessarily. It would be valuable, but it's not everyone's job. I don't think DeAndre Ayton has much trade value, so I don't think they can just like flip him for something. He got traded for Yusuf Nurkic, Nazir Little, and Grayson Allen. I don't think his trade value has gone up since then. So it's like something like that on the other side, in a new, more restrictive economic climate. Simon's, that combo guards that can't defend aren't really highly valued necessarily in the trade market. And Jeremy Grant, I think, is the guy that is most likely to be traded. And if the Houston Rockets are interested, Blazers would love to take your calls. I heard Jabari Smith needs just a change of scenery. He just needs a change of scenery.
No. I did an LOR pod talking about trading him, and he immediately got back in the saddle and started hitting shots. That happens every time I talk about trading a player on LOR. Yeah, they start balling out. It's incredible. Like that's the go-to. That's like whack-a-mole. As soon as a player starts having a bad shooting streak, I talk about trading them. Bam, they're right back where they need to be. It's flawless. It works every time.
I wish I had that touch. I simply do not have them. I'm the reverse. I'm like, he's had a great 5-game stretch.
The other guy too is Rob Williams. I feel like if he's healthy, open. Right, like he's really good. Matisse Thybulle's another piece where it's just like, when healthy, he can be a productive wing defender. It's like, again, the Blazers had this like weird kind of mix and match of like a bunch of like good, serviceable, like top, like you could imagine like top 8, top 9 rotation guys for an NBA team. Maybe some pieces could be depth pieces on other teams. It's just about like when or if they will ultimately decide to fire sale and like try to recoup some value for these guys.
Yeah, you would assume that this deadline is the one where they shop Grant and Simons and Ayton. I don't know that you get deals done for Ayton and Simons just because of their trade value, but a Grant I think is fairly likely. Thibault is interesting because he makes the right amount of money to be very tradable, but he's might not play in the playoffs because of the offense. So it's like, what team needs that specific skill set? If he just needs to come back and make shots, and then he could move to a new city if he's into it, because the shooting is the thing for him. So yeah, and Rob Williams, if he's healthy, is like legitimately very good. I think he's the Blazers' best big man when he's healthy, and when he has been healthy this year, he's been very, very good. He would for the right package, he could help a team win if he is on the court, because dude is a hooper. He could really play.
Man, I there was a period of time there where I was like thinking, man, Rob Williams, Ime Udoka reuniting in Houston.
Yeah.
That would be something. Let's pick up the phone. Let's make a deal, Mike. No. All right, coming up on the other side, we want to talk about this Rockets-Blazers matchup. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. You take us away, Mike.
Okay, still a pass first point guard, still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers and Locked On Rockets.
We should have coordinated that better before we fired up the pod.
I like that we just decided to jump in the pool. You know, people think that this is a really polished and your show's very, very well done. But I like them to know that sometimes we just point that thing down the river and say, let's do it. And this is
the best show is when the best show is when you hit record and you go for 30 minutes and then whatever comes out of your mouth, that's what makes it into the final cut.
Yeah. Maybe not always on my end. I hear you.
Okay, sorry. Speaking for myself there. All right, but look, let's take this game here. First off, let me just ask you, how were the Blazers able to peel off not one but two wins against the Timberwolves? Is it something that the Blazers did that was unique, that they went out and they won that game, or was it just the Timberwolves were just really bad in those two games?
The in-season tournament game was the first of them. They played on a Tuesday and Wednesday. So the in-season tournament game, the Blazers had the best shooting night of any team in the NBA all season long. They shot 56% from three. They made 18 three-pointers, and they shot 57%, or 56 and some change percent from three. They literally had the best shooting game of any team in the NBA all season long to date at that point. I believe the Knicks may have passed them up in terms of overall shooting because the Knicks have been nuts this week. But they had a wild outlier shooting game. They win game one. Then they come back and beat the next night with no Anthony Simons, no DeAndre Ayton. They come back the next night, and Donovan Clingan played the game of his freaking life. He had 17, 12, and 8 blocks, and he blocked 5 shots in the fourth quarter, including 4 in the opening 5 minutes of the fourth quarter when the Timberwolves started 1 of 11 from the floor, and the Blazers just stiff-armed them and held them at bay, and the Wolves in that game couldn't make anything. An 0 for 9 from 3 shooting night from Anthony Edwards, and I think the first win against the Wolves, an absolute outlier, bizarro game. It happens in the NBA. And the second game, I think the Blazers legitimately played very, very well and won. And now they've got to do it again against a really good defensive team.
Well, and so that's, I talked about a couple of kind of the Rockets win conditions earlier, right? They're, one of, if not the top rebounding team in the association right now. They're a top 3 defense. They really rely on their physicality, their ability to attack the glass, get those second and third chance opportunities to really demoralize a team. And even on the broadcast, they literally joke sometimes that the Rockets' best offense is literally just getting the ball up on the rim or on the glass, and then somebody else will go get the offensive rebound and put it back up. Like that is their best offense on some possessions because it's just been so, hard to actually generate good offense for this team this season. What is the Blazers win condition? Like if they want to win this game, what are they good at that they can implement in this game to win?
Well, real quick, the Blazers are 29th in the league in opponent offensive rebound rate. So this is troublesome. Troublesome.
All right, we're going to set the over-under on offensive rebounds at 20.5 and I honestly smash the over on that number.
Yeah, troublesome. So that's a problem. Their win conditions. Okay. They are one of the best teams in the league at forcing turnovers. They are one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league. They're 5th in offensive rebound rate. Obviously, they're playing against maybe the best. So it's like they need to make enough threes to win. They have just one win this year when they have not made double-digit threes. They got to make shots. They are also last in the NBA in effective field goal percentage. they shoot a lot of bricks. So the reason
I
that
think Rockets are second to last right now in effective field goal percentage, if I'm not mistaken. So we could be in for a really ugly game, honestly.
a high offensive rebound game. Okay, so on cleaning the glass, the Blazers are last, and Houston is 27th, so fourth worst in the league.
Hey, improvement. They were second to last,
see,
like when I checked like a week ago.
There you go. Leapfrog by New Orleans, which very limited number of NBA players, and Philadelphia, one of the most hilarious franchises in league history. The Blazers win condition is like they are competitive because they're an above average defense and they force turnovers and they rebound their own misses, and to win they probably have to make 14 threes. Like that, like if not, they're probably just not in the game. They've only have one win all year when they haven't made double digit threes, and they really they need a special shooting night.
The way that the Rockets have found, ways to win games this season, right? They've been able to win without shooting the ball well, but they have struggled. They've been in some really close, kind of grinded out games, in particular against the Clippers. Those two games kind of were their first in-season tournament competitor from this West Group A. And, the Clippers are one of the best three-point shooting teams in the NBA. So going up against a team that does start to drill it from three, like then the margin for error becomes razor thin because the Rockets just don't get up enough threes and they don't make enough threes. So at some point, if the Blazers hit 10 plus threes in this game, 12 plus threes, whatever, you're starting to look at just the Blazers might just flat out win the math advantage against the Rockets. And I'm looking at this as kind of, again, it's a little bit of a trap game for Houston, right? You're looking on the schedule, you're like, it's the Blazers. It should be a win. But again, they've been a kind of a feisty, plucky team this season. And I think if you don't go in and take them seriously, like the Rockets could really struggle. The matchup that I'm most excited and simultaneously terrified for is seeing how Donovan Clingan commands the paint, because the Rockets just played a game against the Milwaukee Bucks in which Brook Lopez had literally his best game of the season, and he altered and changed so much of the Rockets offense because they're so reliant on their paint touches and they're so reliant on Alperen Sengun getting to work down low. Brook Lopez defended the Rockets and by extension Alperen Sengun about as good as you can when he was hovering around the rim, just altering shots, kind of, being that rim deterrent force. And I'm curious how that's going to look against a guy like Donovan Clingan, who again, very similar kind of style, drop big.
Yeah, I think that's Clingan has done better against drivers than he has against roll men. Like I think Clint Capella gave him a little bit of trouble because he could use his size inside and finish. But as a guy corralling drivers on pick and rolls as a drop big, he's been really good. And it's not that he hasn't, he blocked Naz Reid at the rim in one of those games, and Rudy Gobert and his bagless attempts inside, he really gave him fits as well. I think Alperen Sengun's got a little more going for him than Rudy in the paint. Just a
little more razzle dazzle there. So
yeah, a little more 10,000% more touch and skill around the rim. But
okay, Alperen Sengun.
Okay.
We got to get the soundboard going here, Mike. Come on.
There we go. Now we're into it. I'm curious by that as well. I'm wondering, so the Blazers' best defensive player, maybe one of their best players all year long has been Toumani Camara. Who will Toumani guard? Like is it more important to guard Fred, even though he struggled a little bit, and kind of just shut down the organization? Or is it more important to slow down Jalen Green and kind of stop your microwave score? Like who do you think Toumani will check?
Depends on, I would assume he's going to start on Jalen Green.
Me too, yeah.
That would be conventional wisdom. I could very easily see a situation though where he winds up switching and either checking one of Jabari Smith Jr., depending on the type of night he's having, or Fred VanVleet, Fred's had a bunch of over the last 3 or 4 games, he's had a bunch of really big time third quarters. Like the Rockets have been historically a really bad third quarter team, and Fred's really helped turn that around this season, where they come out of the half and Fred is just locked in that third quarter, really hunting for his own shots, really trying to get downhill. Fred being able to get downhill has been such a revelation this season, because last year he looked like basically I joked he was a 2-level scorer. That's all he could do. He couldn't get anything going around the rim, couldn't get downhill, couldn't beat his man, needed a pick to generate separation. This year, he's been so much more effective at getting downhill, putting pressure on the opposing team in and around the rim, and that's helping open things up for his teammates. That's helping open things up, on the roll for Alperen Sengun. So Fred's been great. He had a really rough start to the season. He's really picked it up over these last handful of games, really since the Rockets kind of took off. On the So I think it's probably going to be Jalen Green, but then if Jalen Green starts stinking it up, which he's been after a hot start to the year, Jalen has been really bad, unfortunately. The numbers are pretty bad. I think he's got a true shooting percentage down, and it's like 47.5 right now. It's pretty rough around the edges. But he's improved in a lot of other areas in his game, which is why he's still getting minutes. He's improved considerably as a defender, right? So they're trying to, I think, just ride out this little negative stretch and see if he can get back to where he was to start the season shooting wise. On the Rockets defensive side of things, though, I want to know just what's the Blazers starting lineup going to be for tomorrow night with the question, because Ant's not going to play. Scoot is questionable.
Yeah, I would say Ant might play. Scoot's questionable. He had a quad injury in their last game and left in the middle of the third quarter and didn't come back. So there's a chance that it's like Shaedon Sharpe, Delano Banton, Denny Avdia, or Tumani, Jeremy Grant, and then Klingon in the middle. I don't think DA will play. He's listed as doubtful again. So I think there's a pretty good chance that you get no Scoot, no Anthony Simons, no DeAndre Ayton, although Ant is 50-50. If Ant's back, I bet he'll start, but be on a minutes restriction. So then you're going to get a lot of Delano Banton, and you'll get a lot of Shaedon Sharpe as your primary ball handler with Denny Avdia, who I mentioned, out there and giving you some sort of secondary ball handling stuff. But the way it has looked recently is a lot of Shaedon Sharpe initiating. They are giving him the keys and letting him kind of figure it out. And he's taken real leaps as a playmaker. He's not like Trae Young or whatever, but he's taken real leaps in as just sort of decision making. And then he had a 6 turnover game against OKC, so maybe he'll have another one of those against the Rockets.
So I asked because one of the things that Ime has done this year that he did a little bit last year, but he's done it way more this season. He's putting Alper and Şengün on opposing wing players to start the game. And it's really, he basically picks whoever the worst shooter is of the starting lineup, and he puts Şengün on that player to keep him out of any of the on-ball screening actions that usually happen with the big on the floor. So my best guess is Şengün probably starts the game guarding Denny Avdia, honestly.
Well, Denny probably won't start, so he'll probably guard Tumani.
Okay,
he'll probably guard
all right.
Tumani.
Then there you go. So he'll put
and they've seen that, but we've seen that before with other teams where they put a center on Tumani Kamara, and sometimes Kamara takes advantage of it, and he slips screens really well and uses his quickness, and other times he says like, "I'm going to drive into your chest because you are disrespecting me," and it's like, that's not it. that's
not the move, buddy. No, yeah, and so.
It.
And that's part of the reason why Şengün's defense, his rim protection numbers are so great this season. He's primarily been kind of a weak side defender that rotates over and is able to help contest shots at the rim that way, rather than being the primary defender having to stunt towards the ball handler and then get back and tag the roll. Like, just none of that, right? Which, Şengün still has his limitations in pick and roll defense, which is why Ime's just been like, you know what, if he can't guard in pick and roll, then let's just take him out of all the pick and rolls. And the Rockets have even done things like they're switching certain actions to keep Şengün out of as many of these defensive actions as possible. So Ime has really gone above and beyond to put him in the best position to be successful defensively. And that's kind of what I'm really looking forward to seeing, is how kind of that gets deployed against this Blazers team.
Well, yeah, I'll bet he'll guard Tumani and Denny a bunch then. I bet that's what they'll do. Except Denny will run some pick and rolls, so maybe they'll have to move him off of that in that lineup, and maybe he'll guard Delano Banton. I can't wait.
Fourth quarter god Delano Banton, who I don't, what is it about him in fourth quarters where he's just been transcendent? They got rid of the ancient magic and started playing him before the fourth quarter, but there was a stretch where he was only playing in the fourth and he was been magical. There was a game in Houston last year that you were in attendance for in which Delano Banton took 27 shots. So if you let him loose, my man will get him up. He's not afraid. There's nothing about him that's shy. I think it'll be really interesting in these games is that night one, you get these matchups, right? This works, this doesn't work. And then night two, it's not like playoff intensity, but in terms of matchup specific stuff, you really get to see teams dial it up. You say okay, we're definitely taking that away, or we're definitely we're definitely gonna double team off this action because he gets downhill too much. So it's a mini playoff series as far as adjustments go, right? Because you see them game one and then you immediately see them again game two. As a side note, I love here that in this setup, and the Blazers got this first time around with the T-Wolves as well. I love it when the first matchup is the cup game, because the Rockets, they played their first matchup against the Clippers, and it was like a warm-up game because it wasn't the cup game. And so in a way like that, you can maybe look at both sides as having their pros and cons or whatever. I like it where the first matchup is like the one where it's all the marbles. Like, let's go. It's a cup game. It's intense, whatever. It could, I feel like if you do the first matchup, you're kind of like, okay, well, you kind of, popped off the fireworks or whatever, and now you're back for round 2. Here we go. And you're supposed to get up for the cup game, whatever. So I like that it's scheduled for the Rockets Blazers this way rather than the other way.
Same. Yeah. I like the NBA Cup. I think it's kind of stupid. I think it was like, hey, make the floors different and then pretend that the games matter. I'm in. They fooled me. I'm in. Put on a funny jersey, play on a different court. I'm in. I am a sucker for it. I'm like, yeah, this rocks. Like I'm legitimately intrigued by Friday's game against the Rockets. And if the Blazers are 2-0, Vegas dreams, baby. I'll be dreaming of a trip to Vegas.
Oh, man. Hey, man. Well, it's going to be an exciting game. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to the back-to-back matchups. I'm going to be there in person Friday night. So if you're listening to this as a Rockets fan, come say what's up to me. I'll be in section 106 or whatever I'm usually in. So come swing by. I'll have Locked On Rocket stickers, all that good stuff. But Mike, why don't you take us out, man?
Okay, next time you hear my voice, dear listeners, the Blazers will have played 2 basketball games, and we'll talk about them. Jackson's a little more diligent than I am, so you'll get to hear all from him about those games. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. If you're a Locked On Rockets listener, come check out Locked On Blazers. I'll get you covered. If you're a Locked On Blazers listener, go check out Jackson's show. He does an awesome job over there. And then do me a favor, tell a friend, rate and review the podcast, do all the things you do. We appreciate you listening. We'll talk to you soon.